viewers, this is the latest in my series of interviews with the leaders of some of our affiliates. And today I have with me Dr. Meredith Doig, who is the president of the Rationalist Society of Australia. Hello, Meredith.
Hello, John.
How are you? Yes. I'll tell you what went wrong afterwards when we stop recording.
Sure.
But this is about you. It's about Australia and the situation for atheists there. Mm-hmm. So, can we find out a bit about you first of all?
Sure.
I personally didn't have the usual journey that many atheists have, where they start being indoctrinated and have to wriggle their way out of some sort of religion or faith. Mm-hmm. I just kept my natural born atheism. So what's your story?
So you had it easy.
I did, yes.
Well, a little bit different from me, but also not that difficult. My father did insist that I go to Sunday school, which I did until I was about 12. And at that time, I think it was about 12. And at that time, he said, well, now you can choose whether or not you want to continue. And I said, no, it's boring. But having said that, I must say I'm sort of pleased that I did, because the stories of the Bible and so on are not unfamiliar to me. So when mainstream Christians talk about various aspects of the Bible and so on, I sort of think, I can recognize that. Yeah. But, at the age of 12, I thought, no, this is not adding any value to my life at all. And so, but then from that time through to my early 20s, religion was just irrelevant, really. It wasn't part of my life. I didn't come across religious people very much, or if I did, they didn't really have much influence on me. And then, like a lot of people in their 20s who are searching, and I was in my 20s during the 1970s, and like a lot of people at that time, I got rather curious about Eastern philosophies. Mm-hmm. And I started talking to some people from one of the Indian sort of Eastern philosophies who had a presence here in Melbourne in Australia, and even went to one of their ashrams and sort of sat down with the guru talking to us. And I thought to myself, as he was going through various philosophies and so on and what we should do, and I thought, it all sounds sort of logical, what he was suggesting that we do, which was basically give up our earthly goods to him and go and work for him. And I thought, that all sounds logical if and only if you accept the fact that he is the incarnation of the divine.
Yes.
And I thought, there is no evidence.
Yes.
So I just walked away.
Very well.
And so that was a little bit of a flirtation, I guess, with Eastern philosophies, but it didn't pass the logic test.
Yes, well, that's a very good test to apply.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the wider situation in Australia? We tend to think of it as a very enlightened country.
Oh, do you? Right. Well, compared to, say, the United States, or at least some aspects of the United States, I dare say that is true. We are, from a legal point of view, you could say that we are secular. From a social point, although that's a little bit arguable, we're supposed to be secular, but in some ways, which I can talk about later, we aren't. But from a social point of view, we have until fairly recently been very secular. Mm-hmm. Our politicians don't need to sort of wear their religion on their sleeve, for example. Mm-hmm. But my fear is that there is a creeping incursion of religiosity into our politics and into the public sphere. We now have a Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, who is a Pentecostalist Christian. We did have a Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, who in his youth was 1 year off becoming a Catholic priest. So we have some problems, both politically and indeed socially. Whereas the Australia that I grew up with was socially extremely secular.
But you're not victimized like in some parts of the world. You don't have to stay in the closet as an atheist in case that you might lose your job or not be able to get accommodation or something like that.
Well, no, not to date, although we are facing a piece of legislation which is ironically called the Religious Discrimination Bill. And that was introduced by the Conservative government last year. It's obviously been put on the back burner at the moment because of facing the pandemic and everything associated with that. This piece of legislation, I think, is a bit of a Trojan horse. And if it passes, it may introduce protections for people of religion to basically discriminate against other people on the basis of religion. So it's called the Religious Discrimination Bill. You would think that that would mean that it's a bill to ensure that people are not discriminated against on the basis of religion. In fact, if you analyse it carefully, it gives additional authority to those of a religious bent to override people who do not agree with them on the basis of religion.
So they're trying to...
It's a religious freedom bill in the guise of a religious discrimination bill.
Yes, it sounds as though they're trying to smuggle in protection for religion, but not for the irreligious.
Not exactly. If you have a look at the draft bill, it does specifically mention non-religion. So when it defines religion, it includes non-religion. That's not the problem. The problem is the additional clauses that they've snuck into the back end of the bill, which will have certain deleterious effects.
Are you doing a campaign to combat?
We are. I can send you the link and put it on the bottom of this this broadcast.
Will do. Is there anything that AAI can do to help?
Yes, just send it out on social media and get as many people to sign up to our campaign as possible. We know that our opponents of a religious bent have all their churches to be able to recruit people. We, of course, don't have churches. As you know, it's difficult to herd the cats of the non-religion. So the best thing that we can do is just build our database of people who support our campaign.
Well, any documents that you wish to send to your government protesting about this, we could co-sign if you would like to put them in front of our, like to send them to our president, and we could give you that backing.
Terrific.
So, all the more power to your elbow, Meredith.
We're getting there.
Thank you very much for this chat. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.